Hello and welcome to the Introduction to Logic Pro video, where we will be talking about Logic Pro, how we can find it on our Macs, how to start it up, how to import audio, how to export audio, and basic navigation of Logic Pro. Today, in this video, students, at the end of this project, students will be able to understand how to open up Logic and create a new project, how to download an audio file, how to import an audio file into Logic, how to export an audio file out of Logic, and to understand the differences between a Logic file and an M4A audio file. After that, we also will learn how to finish our projects into the portfolio and their Google Classroom. That being said, we need to talk about different file types. So in your computer, you guys might be familiar with PDFs or Word documents. You might even be familiar with MP3, although we use MP3 to talk about audio files kind of as a synonymous with just audio file. But the reality is MP3 is an older, more condensed, more compressed version of an audio file, and we don't necessarily use those. iTunes uses M4As, and then Windows uses a different file format as well, or they did in the past. So they might have changed depending on when you watch this video. And last but not least, we have a .movie file, which is a movie. We also see those in MP4s. So we see that MP4s are also a type of video format. And it's important to know the differences, especially when we're dealing with different types of software, and understand that certain softwares can open up different files and some can't. That explains this. Yeah, that pretty much explains this. The reason why we're talking about this is that oftentimes I've had students upload their Logic project file into their Google Classroom or even into their Google Drive. And that's a large file. It's really, there's no audio format to it. It allows Logic to access the file and understand where the different audio files are located in your computer in order to, or in the file folder in order to access it. You can save it two different ways so that you don't have those audio files in it. It's a smaller file, but then you have to have that project on the computer. If you want to send a project to another person to work on it, it is a large file, which actually turns out to be a folder, a project folder, that can only be read by Logic. If you are trying to get audio to just listen to it, you have to export that as an audio file in order for it to be accessed by either the audio player built into Chrome or any form of media player on a computer. So let's get started. Going to my desktop, you can see I have Logic open. Logic, you're going to find, is going to be this logo right here. It looks like a silver record, like an homage to the day of gold records and silver records and platinum records when people actually listen to records. If you don't have it in your dock, you can also search for it by going Logic, and it should pop up at that point, and you can hit enter. Now, as you can see, I hit enter, but nothing has popped up. One might think that it's not working. I could click on this multiple times and nothing will happen. Mac doesn't always have a window up when a program's running. And the key is to look up to this top area. Oh, just shut it down. To see that it's working. So here in the top left corner, I can see that Logic is running. If I click out, I know that Finder is running, because now I'm looking at my desktop and I can search for files that way. I can hit for a new window or not. To get back into Logic, click on Logic. The name pops back up here, and I want to create a new project. So I'm going to go to File, hit New, and we're just going to do, it should default with just a blank project, but if not, you want to quickly ask for a blank project, and we are going to click on Audio. We just want to create an audio track. At a later project, we're going to talk about the difference between all these different tracks that we can create right from the beginning. But for all intents and purposes right now, we just want to create an audio track. So let's go ahead and create. And here it is. As you can see, my voice is being picked up, and we have our workstation right here. Whenever we want to create a new track, those tracks are going to be found linearly this way, and recording information is going to be horizontally found on each of those tracks. I have my information from the track, including my digital analog looking slider that controls volume, and we have our master output. So if you're familiar with how a mixing board works, that's the same thing here. And I can adjust the gain through some plugins up here. I don't need to look at this information right now, so I can close it. I can set up my compressor and all that right here. But what we want to do is we want to upload our pre-recorded introduction recording. In the Google Classroom, I gave you a few questions for you to answer, and I want you to import it into this project right here. The best way to do that is to drag the file in, because Logic supports drag and drop functionality. So I'm going to go into my downloads, and I should have all my syllabi, my Rickroll abilities, and I should have my introduction recording somewhere in here. I'm going to search. Actually, I didn't save it as an intro recording. Oh. I don't think I downloaded it. So, I don't think so. But anyways, to not make this any more janky, I'm just going to move on. So, once you find your audio file in downloads, you can click on it and drag it in, just like this. Doesn't matter where you drop it, because we can adjust it later. You can adjust by moving forward and backwards, by grabbing on and letting go. We can play. Now we can play our file by hitting space. So, do, do, so, la, so, so, mi, so, la, la, do, do, mi, so, so, so. Rehearsal parts for our chorus. I can drag this little scroll back as a way to move it anywhere onto the project. However, let's say we were way, 20 minutes into our project and we wanted to go all the way back to the beginning. A shortcut for us is to hit the return key, and it sends us back to the beginning. And then we can hit space. We can hit space again to stop. That's all you need to know. We're not going to do any editing in this project because we just want to get familiar with how to bring in an audio file, and now we need to export the audio file. You could, let's say you have some hissing in the background because you were in there might have been an air conditioner or heater. You can kind of hear the air system in my classroom behind me. And one of the things you might want to do is to turn on the equalizer. Now, the equalizer is something that I can change the function of the sound by cutting down or boosting certain frequencies. And so your voice, you might want to cut down some hissing, so you're going to bring down some of the top end, or you might want to make your voice sound a little bit more boomy. So you might, boost a little bit of the bass frequencies between 50 and 10, or 50 and 200. And you might bring down some of the tinniness by bringing down those mid ranges. So that's your choice, but it's not necessary, and we want to avoid any extremes, nothing, no big peaks or anything like that. After we have, if we've cleaned up our file, again, that's your choice, we need to export it. And how we export is we are going to go to File. We're going to go back to File. File is going to be used quite a bit. File and track, edit, pretty much anything that we have in this file we can do without accessing that file. We can do it various different ways around here in our main window, especially again with record, mix. But going back to file, we're going to go all the way down to the bottom and hit share. And there's different options here. And what happens is that it sends it into a different file format. Remember how we talked about file formats? If we send it to iTunes, it's going to turn it into an M4A file. If we send it to ringtone, it's going to be an M4R file, which is a specific file that tells your phone to repeat it after it has finished. And then we could also send it directly to a different media browser if we were using perhaps even QuickTime, but nobody uses QuickTime anymore, although I am doing it right now to record this. Or if you have a SoundCloud profile, you can send it straight to your SoundCloud profile from here. You just have to connect your Logic and your other systems. No, I'm sorry, your Logic to your SoundCloud profile. We also have here Project to GarageBand or iOS. If you wanted to work on it, if you have a Mac at home and you wanted to work on your project, you can turn it back into a GarageBand file, which is kind of awesome. And it looks like it's a new system because I don't think I had that in my previous versions. So we're just going to go to Send Song to iTunes, and this is where we have to keep in mind about consistency. So I'm going to, even though it's not my introduction, we want to record, put in the title. We're going to keep our titles organized. So this is our first project. It's going to be number 1 period space intro recording initials. Artists, I would say do your first name and last initial. I'm going to do it backwards, so, or you could do like, yeah, there we go. And then album, semester 1. Do me a favor, do not put a space. I sometimes do it myself. Don't put a space after your last initial. End it with the period. Because as you can see, I did that. So end it with a period, and then also end it with the numeral 1. The reason being is that when we share it, it ends up in iTunes, and it ends up in an album. So the album is going to be under the name. It could be under the name or the title. So let's see if John Doe. There it is, John D. So I have my recording. The next project we do would be our second project. If I do 2 period and whatever that project is, and keep semester 1 and the name the same, iTunes will automatically collect all of my projects as an organized album. When it comes time to locating any of your projects that you might have missed, this is going to make your life a whole lot easier. And now we have to upload it into Google Drive. So we, as simple as it was to download it or even to put it into Logic, all you will have to do is open up your Google Drive through Chrome and drag it from the iTunes window. Oops. And then also do the same thing in Google Classroom. So you're going to submit this project twice. Once in Google Drive to organize your music tech portfolio, but then again in your Google Classroom. And that's it. As simple as that first project, make sure you go through that process. And like I said, you should have your recording beforehand. If you have not, before you get to this part, you need to do that. So if you have not done your recording, go do your recording. If you have done your recording, go ahead and perhaps even go through this video again and go through the process as I'm explaining it to you. If you have any questions, flag me down. If you're in my classroom, if you are not in my classroom, if you are just a patron of YouTube, that's a good question. Put the question in the comments. All right, great. Well, there we go. Our introduction to Logic and our first project. Good luck.